Bard on the Plains podcast with Mike McPeak. It's about stories, mine and yours.
Hello everybody. I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. I don't have a story to tell. It's 10/15, New Year's Day 2021. We've made it through the year 2020. And if any of you have noticed, it's been a few months since I've gotten an episode out. Well, there's been some reasons behind that, and I thought I would just kind of explain them a little bit and maybe kind of have a mind dump here and maybe, clear my mind, and maybe it'll help me get over the kind of slump that I've been in. This is a creative process, and, I'm not a professional screenwriter or somebody that produces this stuff for a living. If I was making a living at this, I would be working a lot harder to get an episode out and try to get creative again. But like I said, I do this for fun. Not very much profit. I've made literally like $10 doing this podcast. So like I say, I do it for the fun and entertainment, and just lately I've just been in not too good a mood for a few reasons. I'll just kind of go over them a little bit here, and hopefully not in too much detail. But there's just things that's kept me in a funk, and one of them is this the Chinese Communist Party flu. I prefer to call it that because I think that more accurately describes it and where it came from and who's responsible for it. But I've been getting a little frustrated by this because when it first started out, we all took it seriously. They said 15 days to flatten the curve, so we all did that. We stayed home, we behaved ourselves. But now it just seems like it keeps getting extended and extended and extended. And to me, it seems more like an opportunity for people to, grab power and exert their influence over us. I'm going to try and be generous with these people because I know there's really some conspiracy theories out there, and I've been trying to stay away from them too. But I'm going to just, like say, be very generous with these people and assume that they think they know what's best for us, and so they believe that they've got to grab power and make decisions for us for our own good. I disagree strongly with that. Thankfully, I live in a state, South Dakota, where our governor respects us, and she hasn't imposed so many laws and rules and regulations on us, and has let us make our own decisions. And I think we've come out rather well. Certainly we haven't collapsed our economy here because of all this. But there's other places where, there's all these rules and regulations, and you get turned into the police if you aren't doing this, and you have people screaming at you because you aren't wearing a mask. And like I say, I think for some people this just is an opportunity for them to grab power and assert their authority. And so this has kind of gotten me kind of aggravated because I think and understand this, I take the plague seriously because I know a couple people have gotten very sick from it, and there was a young lady that graduated from the high school where I worked that did pass away from this. So I know this is serious, but there are a lot of other things in the world that will kill us too. The world is not a safe place to live in, but we've learned to adapt to it over these many generations, many centuries, millennia. However long we've been on, human beings have been on this earth, and we've learned to adapt to it. But now this comes along, and civilization is collapsing, and we must, everyone's talking about we must change the way we do things. Well, we should always be open to change, but I don't think we ought to do it out of fear or to be stampeded into making bad decisions. And I really feel like that's what's going on here. So, not to get into a political diatribe about all this, but that's kind of when it comes to the COVID, the flu, Chinese party flu. That's, like I say, that's been weighing a lot on my mind, and it's kind of got me bummed out. And then to the election here, I'm going to try and not go too far down the politics rabbit hole here, but I do feel, as of right now, like I say, it's January 1st. The election still hasn't been decided yet in my mind. I know there's a lot of people declaring Biden the winner, but I honestly believe that this was not a fair and honest election. I think there was skullduggery going on. Now, to prove it is something different, but I'll spare you all the analysis. But from what I saw, for Biden, who is not that strong a candidate, to supposedly win the way he did, there's lots of things that just don't add up. There's lots of stories out there that I think, if the shoe was on the other foot and it was Trump, they would be investigating the heck out of this. And I wish they really would investigate a lot of these stories about voter fraud and whatever. And if we're wrong, I will own up to it. I will say, fine, Biden is the winner. But prove to us that this election was honest. We shouldn't be told, just don't ask questions. I don't think that's right. And like I said, I'm also very concerned about Biden becoming president, because I feel that this will be very bad for the country, for the Democrats to get into power, because, they are just pushing blatant socialism. And in the last 100 years, socialism has killed 100 million people. If you don't believe me, look it up. Look at the Soviet Union. Look at Venezuela now. Look at Nazi Germany. They were socialists. Look at what China's doing to its own people under the guise of doing it for their own good, or for the greater good of the community or of the government or whatever. And usually that just means that the people in charge of the government are worried about protecting themselves. They're not so worried about the rest of society. And so, like I say, I'm very concerned about what this may do for this country. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic. We've gone through World War I, World War II. We've gone through the Great Depression. My folks grew up in the Great Depression, and these were all deep, dark times, and we made it through there. So maybe I shouldn't be so pessimistic, and the American people are a hardy and resilient bunch, and I'm sure that they will do their best and they will pull through this. And like I say, maybe it won't be as bad as I'm thinking it is, but again, I've kind of got myself into a sort of a funk about that. And then the third thing that's kind of got me down, and this is more of a personal thing for me. I was part of this podcast, and of a podcast, another one that I had done, and me and two other people, and basically, I was politely asked to leave that because it was never explicitly said, but it was about politics. Because if you haven't figured out by now, I'm to the right, and the other people that were involved with this podcast were not. They were, to the left. I'm afraid very far to the left. And like I say, they just didn't. We didn't see eye to eye on politics, but we always kept it. We would discuss things. We would keep it, civilized, and we would discuss things. But I just think it got, too much for him to have somebody that didn't agree with them, and and I did, maybe shoot off my mouth to the guy who owned the network that this podcast was on, who had started the podcast. So I'm not saying I'm completely blameless when it comes to this, but I guess it did put me in a it did make me upset when this happened, and I've kept my mouth shut about it. And this is all I'm going to say about it. I'm not going to say what podcast it was. You can easily figure it out if you want to. But like I say, it did put me in a bit of a funk, and I just, that they weren't, they always claimed to be, tolerant, and they want to observe all views as long as you agree with them. And, they just, like I say, it bugged me, and I just have to, remind myself that you just can't make people understand why, what they're doing is not good for the country or for themselves or for other people. And so I just kind of have to walk away from that and just, realize some people are, basically narrow-minded and bigoted and just closed-minded to, different ideas. But, like I say, so those things have kind of got me into, in the mood, but I'm hoping that by just, talking this out here and putting it out there for you guys to listen to and just getting it off my chest. And, after this, I'm not going to discuss politics anymore. I'm not, going to discuss any of this other stuff. I want to go back to telling stories that, about me growing up. And maybe I will start to tell stories that maybe not a moral, but maybe some sort of a lesson to be learned, perhaps. Not a heavyweight lesson, but, just maybe the value of hard work or persistence or, something like that. But I want to get back into doing, this podcast again and get some more stuff out there. And I've got some other ideas. My daughter and I are talking about doing a podcast that would kind of highlight our smart aleck attitudes. There was another word I was going to use, but I try to keep swearing off this podcast. But this one that my daughter and I end up doing, there will be swearing. Because that's just the way we are. That's the way, that's our attitude. That's the way we express ourselves. So, I want to do that. And I have another podcast, Holding Out for a Hero, that I've let languish for, that's probably about a year and a half now. But, I just want to be creative and fill that hole left by that other podcast and just get something creative and put it out there for people to listen to and everything. But, I'm just going to wrap this up. I just, did my mind dump here. And I hope you people, understand what I'm doing here, and I thank you for listening to this. And if you've tuned out, well, I'm sorry. But like I say, I'm just gonna end this, and I wish you, a happy New Year in the coming year. And we've all pretty much survived the last year. We've come out a little scarred and a little weary, but adversity helps make people stronger. It helps you grow. It eventually you will see the wisdom of having to do the hard stuff. But I need to be positive about what's coming personally and for the nation and everything else. But it's just thank you for listening to me. Thank you for downloading. If you disagree with what I say, anything, send it to my DSC Chipman Twitter account. I'd rather not get my Bard on the Plains bogged down with politics. I'd rather just keep it for the show itself. But if you want to, make comments to me, find me on Twitter at DSC Chipman. Or I have email too at bardontheplains at gmail.com. You could send letters there. I'm not afraid to have discussions with people about anything, but it's a free country as of right now, and I'm all for the exchange of ideas. But with that, I'm just going to bring this podcast to an end, and thank you for your time, and please tune in for my next episode, which will not be this heavy or anything like that. So and I hope you keep listening and go and find the other stuff that I end up doing. So thank you for your time. Have fun and have a good life.
If you have a story you'd like to tell, contact Mike on Twitter at Bard on the Plains, or by email at bardontheplains@gmail.com. For more information about the stories in this podcast, visit bardontheplains.com.